I've paid thousands of dollars in courses to learn what you're basically teaching on your podcast for free. What you're putting out there is so valuable. So, I just really want to acknowledge you, and I definitely send everyone to your podcast.
You were virtually one of the first mentors that I looked up to and started following. You're always one step ahead of the game. So I just wanted to give you kudos and props for that, because lots of people are watching, lots of people are learning from it.
Tucker and the whole TTM crew, Dan and Chris, thanks so much for your support. I love what you guys do, and a huge, huge fan. Having this support's huge. So I'm grateful for that.
What's up, everybody out there in listener land? This is episode 251 of the Real Dealz podcast, and I've got a great show for you. Now, I put one out earlier this week. It was kind of a mini show. It was all about our REI Deal Generator program and the one slot that we have left. So hopefully, if you heard that, you reached out to us if you had any interest. But this week's show, it's one that I've been waiting to do for a while. I've been holding off and holding off and holding off. And the reason being is because I've been waiting for our app developer to actually get everything dialed in for our Driving for Dollars app. And there's been a lot of chatter out there online, a lot of the Facebook groups getting a lot of love for our app the way that it is right now. But just wait until you guys see the updates that are about to get deployed. They're going to be finalized this weekend. And so basically, you guys will probably hear this on Friday. Next week, we're going to have all of those new enhancements deployed within the app, and so you can basically do an update and you can get all kinds of cool stuff. And so what I wanted to do was a show that kind of goes through all of the different data points that the app now provides and how to best use those data points in order to market to sellers. And there's a variety of different ways you can market to them. There's more expensive, less expensive ways, but the important thing is that you have to layer them all together. And if you layer them all together in the right way and you do that consistently, you can basically create an on-demand deal machine, right? A marketing machine. That's what you're building. And so that's what I want to go through in this week's show. I want to go through all of the line items in terms of contact points that the app gives you and exactly how it is that you should be marketing to people with those contact points. So that's a big thing. And then another thing to mention is we actually created an entire course on this as well. We're giving it away for free. So all you got to do is go download the app, and we'll be deploying that to people who have already downloaded the app and those that are going to be new adoptees, we'll call it, or new people to download the app this next week and beyond. It's a 7-day series, so basically I broke it up into 7 parts, and we're going to email you every day a different portion of how to essentially market to all the different data points that the app provides. And so I'm going to go through it in this podcast, but we're going to put it in written form. I'm going to expand upon some stuff even more in the written form. So if you haven't already, go download the app. It's free to download, and you're going to get this free course, and you get this podcast here where I'm going to go through a bunch of that stuff. So that's going to be this week's show. Now, before we get into all that, biggest thing housekeeping-wise is, of course, our REI Deal Generator program. We had one spot to fill. It may be filled at this point. I haven't talked to Dan. I don't know. But if you're interested, reach out to us. We might still have it available. Doubtful, but maybe we do. The other thing I wanted to mention is our Deal Finders Academy. For those of you guys who want to be a part of a mastermind type setting, maybe you don't need one-on-one coaching at this point in time, but you want to be able to rub virtual elbows with some of the best investors from across the country, make sure to reach out to us, and we'd love to see if we can fit you in and find room for you within the academy. We don't stack people on top of each other, so we try and accommodate as best we can to make sure that that doesn't happen, but we do have a few openings in a few markets, so reach out to us, and we'd love to hear from you and make you a part of the community so you can come hang out with us and rub virtual elbows with some of the best investors from across the country. Now, that's the biggest thing as far as housekeeping goes, and you guys listened to my podcast earlier this week, more than likely. So let's talk about what's going on with me and TTM this week. It's been a big week for us. We put a lot under contract a week ago or so that we're going to build a new home on for probably a $1.1 million-ish home, which sounds like a lot, but it's going to be entry level. We just, as of Monday this week, put another house under contract that we've been going back and forth with the seller on for, probably 8 months, 9 months, something like that. So for all you guys that are listening that, are marketing to sellers or thinking about marketing to sellers, That's called a long sales cycle. It took 9 months or more. We might even have seen the place over a year ago. I don't know. It's been a while. Basically, the guy's mom, she moved out of this house, moved into assisted care. He had a kind of a loser brother, we'll call him. Maybe loser is a nice way to put it, but he was probably a 45, 50-year-old brother who never left home and also lived with mom. And so mom had to move to assisted care, which meant brother had to actually grow up and not be Peter Pan anymore and find a place to live on his own without mom, paying rent or giving him a room to live in. So that just took time. That was a process. And so we had to work through that and allow the seller to work through that. Then we revisited with him, because you have to follow up with people, of course. And at that point, there were multiple people looking at the property, not just us, which, of course, is normal in today's market, especially in Portland. It's a highly competitive market. I mean, it seems like everybody and their mother is buying houses these days. But what we did is we went back, we met with them, we walked through the house again, got a little bit better idea of, what was going on in their timeline, and essentially discovered that, they were ready to sell. Mom was out, and loser brother had found a place to go and somebody else to leech off of. And so we talked to them, we got their number from them, which is a big thing. If you guys don't know how to do that, I suggest you get our Negotiating with Sellers course, or training, I should say, which teaches you how to extract that information from people. But we got his number from him. His number was too high. It just was. We couldn't make it work. And it was so high that I didn't want to play the game of, we'll give you your number, but then we're going to go through the inspection period and we're going to hit you with a giant reduction. I didn't want to play that game. We were just too far off. And, that gives you a bad rap as well. And it's just, sometimes you have to play that game, and it's just the way business has to be done these days with all the competition, because people want to hear what they want to hear sometimes. But in this case, we were just too far off. And so I actually went with this, believe it or not. I went with the honesty approach, right? Which a lot of people don't like to believe, that we as real estate investors can be honest, but we can. And I went with the honesty approach. I said, look, houses are selling for this. The house needs this much work. And given those things, we have to be able to make some money, and it's just not worth the time, money, and effort if we're going to pay anywhere near this number. So here's our number. And by the way, within this number, there are a couple things that we have to check out that we have not been able to kind of fully investigate. And we gave him the number, and he said, well, let me think about it. And 2 days later, he accepted it. So I think in last week's show, I talked about being disciplined. This month we've been very disciplined about our buying. And so we were very disciplined in the way that we went about this one, and ultimately we ended up getting it at a much better price, and it's a price that makes sense to do the work. It's in a great spot of Lake Oswego. It's actually a renovation project and not a new construction project, so we're able to put it out at kind of a cheap price for Lake Oswego, because new construction starts at about $1 million there, and this will be probably $579 to $599, so it should be a pretty easy sale once it's done. But I'm excited. We got it locked up. And then today we went and looked at another house that looks like is going to work out as well. So we've got, the phones are ringing. We got leads coming in right and left. We've gotten to that point in the year. There's always that week every year after the holidays where the phones just light up, the leads light up, and, deals just start kind of pouring in. And you don't know if it's going to be the first week of January. You don't know if it's going to be the fourth week of January. You don't know if it's going to be the second week of February. Sometimes it goes all the way till then. And this year, it looked like it made it to about the end of January, very beginning of February, and the phones started to light up again, and deals started to roll. So we got a lot of stuff that we're looking at, and we've got a couple that, one that's under contract, one that we're going to be doing an offer presentation on tomorrow that seems like quite the deal. If we can buy it, we can turn around and resell it and probably make, 50, 60 grand just doing that. So a lot of stuff going on, and we're also, of course, putting out, or trying to put out, one episode a week. It'll probably end up being one episode every 2 weeks here moving forward, but we're trying to put out an episode a week or every 2 weeks of $1 Million Builds. So if you guys have not checked that out, it's funneled through the podcast here as a video podcast, but I also post it on my Facebook page. So if you guys follow me on Facebook, I put them out there a day early so that you guys can see basically our progress on our multi-million-dollar new construction build that's in Dunthorpe. It'll probably be a $3.5 million home once we're done with it, but it's a big house. It's a big project. It's a big piece of property, and it is going to be an epic home, probably the most epic home, I'm going to say, in the entire Portland metro area this year. And I know that's kind of egotistical and I'm saying something that's pretty big, but the reality is that a house like this on the lot that it's on, in the location that it is, just it rarely ever happens. And so we have a shot to make the house for 2019 for our Portland metro area here, and as far as new construction goes anyway. And so we're embracing that, and we're putting a lot of work into it, but we're also documenting it, and we're doing it through $1 Million Builds. So make sure to check that out if you have not already. So that pretty much wraps up the important stuff that's going on with me and TTM over the course of the past week. So without further ado, let's dive into all of the enhancement data that's going to be coming out this next week for our Driving for Dollars app, and of course how you guys should be using it to market to sellers. All right, Real Dealz podcast listeners, I want to talk quickly about our show's sponsor, Iron Bridge Lending. If you guys have not reached out to Iron Bridge already to talk to them about funding some of your upcoming flip projects, I highly encourage you to do so. I've known the owner of Iron Bridge for a very long time. I've personally borrowed millions of dollars from them over the years to do a number of different projects, and I can say without a doubt, they are the best hard money lending company I have ever come across, and that is the reason why they are the sole sponsor of this show. I've had a lot of other companies reach out to me and want to sponsor this show, but I just won't do it. I feel like I need to be genuine in who we have sponsoring the show, and it needs to be somebody that I've personally done a ton of business with. So I personally vouch for their ability to be the best, hands down, in the world of hard money lending. You won't find better programs, you won't find better terms, and they're lending or will be lending in over 20 states. So chances are, if you're hearing this in whatever state you're in, it's definitely worth it to check out their website, reach out to them, see if they're lending in your state, and if they are, I would absolutely encourage you to do business with them. Another very cool thing to note is that they have a program for most rehabs where you can actually borrow up to 90% of the purchase price. Now, this is given the fact that you are actually buying a deal, which if you're listening to the show, that means you probably are. But if you have an actual deal on the table, they'll fund up to 90% of your purchase price, and they'll even give you rehab funds on top of that, which means that it only takes 10% down to get into a project, which is unbelievable in the hard money world. So do yourself a favor, reach out to Iron Bridge Lending, have a conversation with them, see if they're a good fit for you and for your next project. I can guarantee you that you'll be happy that you did. All right, guys, it is time for the main topic. And this week's main topic is one that, as I mentioned in the intro, I'm very excited about because we have, at least on our end, we're working on testing the new build for our Driving for Dollars app, which pulls a bunch of additional data, which then you can use to market to potential sellers with. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to go through each data point, not only contact point, but data point that might be additional data about the property or the property owner itself that can help you qualify the lead and kind of give you a little more insight and information about the property and property owner themselves. So that's what I want to do. But before I get into all that, we've also created a course that is this basically in written form. I elaborate a little more, go into a few different things, but the course, we're going to deploy that to everybody who has downloaded the app already. So if you've already downloaded the app, you'll get a 7 email course, or it's basically a 7 sequence email that's essentially a course on how to utilize all of the data points in order to market to sellers. And if you haven't, go download the app. It's free to download, and on top of downloading it, you will get this course. And so we're going to start pushing this course out next week to everybody that has either downloaded the app or will download it. So just a little caveat there. Number 2 is this. We are in the process of not only changing the way that the app works, but adding a lot of additional data to it. And so it basically becomes a skip trace for every single person that you put on one of your Driving for Dollars lists. And because of that, we're going to have to raise the price slightly. It's not a bunch. We're going to raise it a few bucks, but we have to in order to stay in business and in order to essentially not lose money on a monthly basis with the data costs that it costs us as a company. So at the end of the day, we are going to be raising prices a little bit, but it's still going to be a no-brainer in terms of value. We probably should raise it a lot more, but I want to make sure that we continue to give way more value than we take from anybody, but just a little heads up there. So it is a reality that we have to raise prices if we want to stay in business, and so that's what we're going to have to do. But with all that said, we've got some amazing stuff that our app is now able to do, and I want to dive into it kind of piece by piece here so that you guys can kind of get a firm understanding of how to best use it and really how we are using it now in our own business every day as we're testing it and able to basically take all the skip trace data that it provides and market to a seller in a variety of different ways. Now, the first piece of data that you're going to get, and this has been provided for a while now, is the property owner, where their address is, right? Where do they actually live? Now, in a lot of cases, this can be the subject property, but in some cases, it may not be. The subject property may be an investment property for them or rental, and they may live somewhere else. And this is where having skip trace quality data is valuable, because we give you multiple addresses that you can find this individual at, and it ranks them in order of, likelihood of them being at any particular address. This is important because a lot of times, you might pull county records, you might mail an address of where a property owner lives because it's not at the property itself, and it bounces back and it says that they're not there, right? Then you have to skip trace them and you have to send it to that address that the skip trace tells you that they're actually at. And so by pulling the address information directly from the app, it eliminates that step of sending it out through via what county record says and having the mail eventually bounce back and then having to resend the mail, right? So it cuts all that out of it. But the first and foremost and most important piece of data that you're going to get is that address. That data of what address they're actually at is super important to make sure that you're mailing the right one, and you're mailing it first. That way you don't have to go through the cycle of figuring out, okay, where are they actually? So that's the biggest piece. With that, you needed to be deploying some direct mail on a consistent basis. And so in the course that I put together, I kind of talk about some of the things that we do with our direct mail in order to kind of help our response rate. But overall, you want to think of direct mail as just a way to get somebody's attention, right? You're trying to deliver a message, just like anything else, but you want to get their attention. And most people are sorting their mail over the garbage can, right? So unless it grabs their attention right away, it's going in the garbage. And then once you have their attention, you want to keep their attention. So you really need to think about that. That's how we do it. That's how we've always done it. A lot of people just send generic postcards, and you can do that, but you got to do it in mass, and you got to do it over and over and over and over again. So it almost becomes like brand marketing and not direct response marketing, because you're hitting people so many times. With these specialty lists, they're usually a little bit smaller lists or more specific type properties. It's worth it to invest a little bit more in the mail piece itself so that it's more memorable, it gets their attention, it keeps their attention, and it delivers them some form of direct response type marketing message so that then they directly respond to the message by contacting you. And so that's the biggest thing. So that's kind of the foundation of everything. And that's really how we built the app to begin with, is we wanted to pull, owner information as far as where they live and then mail to them. And that was the original iteration of the app. That was what we originally built it for. And this was, 4 years ago now, something like that, when we originally started building this thing. Might even have been 5 when we came up with the idea and we wanted to start it. But it's been a long road. But that was the original iteration. Now it does that, but it does that with skip trace quality data. And that's the first and primary piece of information that you need in order to start your marketing machine. The second thing that you're going to get is going to be phone number. Phone number is a big thing these days. Everybody wants to know what phone numbers, people can be reached at. Now, phone numbers can be marketed to in a variety of different ways. For those of you guys that got big cojones, and maybe you're like my man David Martinez, and you are just smooth as silk on the phone, cold calling might be the way to go. Now, the beauty of what our app does now is it pulls multiple different phone numbers. It pulls landlines and it pulls cell numbers, and it differentiates between the two. And it gives you the most likely cell numbers and it gives you the most likely landline numbers. So this is important because if you're cold calling, you want to start with the most likely numbers. But if you're running RVMs, which we'll get to in a minute, you need to run those RVMs to cell numbers, not landlines. But you need to be able to differentiate the two. And our app now does that for you, and it gives you separate tabs so that you can basically upload cell numbers versus landline numbers if you're going to run RVMs or text blasts. But those are the two additional ways that you can market to it. So number one is going to be cold calling, right? If you've got the cojones and you're good on the phone, or you want to get good at the phone, cold call. And, we do a little bit of cold calling in my business here, not a ton, but the cold calling that we do is for very specific properties that we absolutely, without question, want to buy. It's not generic, just they have equity, or, maybe it's a little bit dilapidated and we call them. We could, but we don't. We leverage it and we market to them in other ways that we can just do more of. But when we do cold calling, it's a very specific piece of property that we want to redevelop, and it's in the exact area that we want to be in. Maybe it's a certain part of Lake Oswego, whatever it is, right? those are the ones that we cold call. You can cold call whoever you want, but that's the first way that you can use that piece of information or that data point in order to market to a seller via the app. Now, the phone numbers, like I said, are skip trace quality phone numbers as well. The second iteration of the app, we were pulling phone numbers from a different data provider than we were pulling the address, and the phone numbers were good, but they weren't great. Now they're great. They're skip trace quality numbers, and there's multiple numbers, and there's cell numbers and landline numbers when they're available. Now, of course, the older the homeowner is, the more likely you're going to get a landline, right? That's just the way it works out. Older people generally have a landline. Younger people, maybe they don't, right? Or if they're middle-aged, maybe they have both, and then you can contact them both ways. But you start with the cold call if you want to. The next way that you can market to these people is via ringless voicemails, or as people have, said out there many times now, it's a hot thing, is RVMs, right? RVMs. And we use Roar. That's our system for RVMs. We have for months on end now, and I love their system. We use it every single day. It's a great provider, and they've got it's a really slick piece of technology. And so we use Roar. You can go back and listen to the episode where I talk to the owner of Roar, and you can click on the link there and get set up with them on the show notes page, and we'll make sure it's in this show notes page as well. But that's our system for doing RVMs, and that's how we leverage basically not having a giant cold call center, right? We create these ringless voicemails, and we blast them out on a daily basis, and we basically follow our mail with ringless voicemails, and then we also send out ringless voicemails on an ongoing, consistent basis to our entire universe of people that we've created lists of over the years. And so that's way number 2. Way number 3 that you can use phone number information is texting. Now, of course, you want to text to the cell number, not a landline, which again, the app differentiates the two for you, which is a big deal. But when you text, what we've found is that some markets text works very well to initiate conversation. In some markets, it works really well to piss people off. And so we use it sparingly in our market here because it works really well to piss people off as an initial form of contact. And so what we use it for is more of a follow-up form of contact. So if we've made some form of contact with them, we then use text blasting as kind of a follow-up way of communication with them. Just because we found people in Portland here tend to not like, they're very, I guess they don't want people to text them in a marketing type of way. They want to have text be a communication mechanism with somebody that they're already comfortable communicating with. In other markets, we've seen where people don't care, and it works great, and it's just a great way to stimulate conversation and start the process. And so you have to kind of figure it out for your market. Are people protective of their text messages? That was the word I was looking for. Or are they more open to being marketed via text message? It just depends on the people in your area and your market overall. So you got to figure that out. If they are open to being, having conversations started via text message, then again, you can use Roar and you can text blast people. You can basically send out a mail piece, hit them with a ringless voicemail, and then right after the ringless voicemail, hit them with a text message if you want to that said, hey, I just left you a voicemail, would love to hear from you, something like that. And then you can use the text message on an ongoing basis to kind of trickle market them as well. But those are the 3 main ways that you can take a phone number. Of course, you have to know it's a cell phone number, right? If you're going to run that type of stuff to it, you have to know it's a good number, both of which you get from the app, and then you can execute those types of marketing to them, and then that will really help layer your direct mail, which is essentially the foundation of your marketing. Now, the next piece of information that you get, and this is new. This is a new one that we're adding to the mix, and part of the reason why we've got to bump the cost up a little bit, in addition to the fact that it's all skip trace quality data now. It's not just good data, it's great data. But the next piece of information that you're going to get is email addresses, and you get multiple. And so basically, you can now contact people via email, and it gives you multiple emails, because a lot of times people have multiple emails over the course of, a decade or whatever. And so you're going to get the 3 most likely emails in a lot of cases that somebody can be communicated with, or that you can send them emails to. And this way, you can do a variety of things, but first and foremost, it's just an additional contact point. And it's a point that most people, I'd say virtually all people, are not protective of their email. They've been blasted enough of an email that they don't get offended by it. And so you can easily market to them without having to worry about offending them, which is a big thing. But number 2 is marketing via email is free, right? So the most costly form of marketing is going to be direct mail generally. And then if you do ringless voicemails and text blasts, not very expensive at all, really cheap. If you do cold calling and you're hiring somebody to do it, then of course you've got the cost of the cold caller. If you're doing it yourself, it's free. But emails, once you have the data, you can market to people completely for free via some form of email drip campaign on an ongoing basis. What I will say is this. You want to treat email like you treat direct mail. You want to get somebody's attention. You want to keep their attention, and you want to give them a reason to actually contact you back. That's all I'll say in this podcast. But think of email as just you're trying to get somebody to raise their hand and say, yes, I might be interested. So whatever kind of message, headline, whatever it is that you have to craft in order to get their attention and keep their attention and get them to raise their hand, think about that when you're drafting your copy and you're kind of putting these things together. But that's the first thing you can do with email address. Second thing you can do is you can take a legitimate email address, you can upload it into social platforms. We'll talk about Facebook mainly, but you can upload it to Facebook, and when you do that, Facebook can match profiles with email addresses. So if somebody opened a profile under that email address, now you can create this list of people that essentially live in a certain pocket or a certain neighborhood that own a certain house that you absolutely want to buy because it's on your driving for dollars list, and you can run specific tailored ads to them given that they have a Facebook profile that matches one of the email addresses that you have. And generally speaking, if they have a Facebook profile, it's going to match one of the email addresses that our skip trace data pulls. And so now you can run Facebook ads to these small subset groups that it's very cost effective, but you can create these custom ads that run to these people for a specific part of town, about a specific area. You can kind of use your imagination in terms of how to get people's attention on Facebook, but you can upload that information into the platform or the social platform in order to run ads specifically to those people. So your waste in terms of money spent on ads is very little because you're running them to the exact people who own the exact properties that you want to buy because you've seen those properties, you've put them in the app, and you've run the skip trace quality data in order to get the email address so that you can match it to a social profile. Now, the last piece of contact data that you are now getting from the app, and this is a big one as well, is IP address. An IP address is something that most people don't really know what in the hell an IP address is, and which I don't blame them. It's kind of an odd thing, but think of IP address as basically you have your physical address, right? And think of your IP address as your physical address for the internet. So when you log on to the internet, your IP address is the internet in which you start to log on to the internet from. And so once you get the IP address of a property owner, you now have the ability to run them ads virtually anywhere they go on the internet that accepts ads, right? Like banner ads or site ads or ads that basically sites that will allow you to run ads on. You can do that, and you can follow people all around the internet by running these very inexpensive ads that's called IP targeting. That's the technical, I guess, definite or name of it. But by having their IP address, you can now run IP targeting ads, and you can basically chase people around the internet, and you can layer that in on top of all the other marketing that you're doing. And if you do it properly, it just makes you seem like a bigger brand. It's not going to be, I wouldn't think of IP marketing as a way to generate consistent deal flow on its own, but it's a great, cheap, effective way to make sellers or property owners feel like you are everywhere, right? You are everywhere they go, they see your brand, they see you, and ultimately what that does is it just ups the chances of them responding to one of your marketing pieces that you're sending them or one of your messages and saying, hey, yes, I am interested in selling, I'm going to give you first crack at it. Because that's really all we're trying to do right now. Let's be the first one there, and hopefully from there, you got to be able to work your magic and decide whether or not they need an offer right away, or you got to let it simmer a little bit, but you want them to raise their hand and say, hey, Mr. Property owner, I'm interested in selling. Let's see if we can put a deal together. And so the IP address is a really cool thing because it's an additional way that you can serve ads to people that own specific properties that you want to buy, and you can essentially follow them all the way around the internet, and it's very cheap to do so. So let's recap here. In terms of cost-wise, you've got direct mail, most expensive way to market to people, but also it's really the most effective at the end of the day on an ongoing, consistent basis. We've been using direct mail for almost 10 years now. It's not as effective as it used to be, but it still works. Our phone rings every day because we send out direct mail. It works, people. You just have to do it consistently on an ongoing basis, and you have to have a piece and a good message, and it works. The end. But on top of that, you now have a variety of other contact points that you can run marketing to sellers with. And that would be phone number, that would be email address, and that would be IP address. And so with the phone numbers, of course, you can do ringless voicemails, you can do cold calls, you can do text blasts. Cold calling is free if you're doing it yourself. Ringless voicemails and text blasts are extremely cheap. Email address, once you have it, it's free to market to them via emails. And if you want to run ads on a social platform like Facebook, it's pretty cost effective to do that as well, especially if you're only serving ads to a smaller list of certain people on your Driving for Dollars list. And then, of course, you've got the IP address. And with the IP address, you can service ads to people wherever they go on the internet, on whatever sites will accept ads. Now, the last pieces of information that you're going to get from the app that will just be kind of help to qualify the lead or the owner themselves as a good potential lead. It's just kind of supporting data, we'll call it. Not actual contact points, but supporting data. Number one is going to be the last market sale date. So when did it last sell, right? Because if it sold a month ago or a year ago, chances are there's probably not a whole lot of opportunity there. I mean, sometimes it happens, but generally not a ton. And it's also going to say what the last sale price was. So, when it sold and how much it sold for, which is a good thing to know because the farther back it sold and the less it sold for compared to now, the more potential opportunity there is. So finding a property that sold a long time ago for a lot less money than it's worth today, there's more opportunity than something that sold a year ago for basically what it's worth today, right? Get what I'm saying? The next thing is going to be whether or not, let's go with this. The next thing is going to be the age of the homeowner, right? Or the property owner, how old they are. Generally speaking, most people that we buy property from are, we'll call it upper 40s up to 90 years old plus. We're not really buying property from people much younger than that unless they inherited the property from their parents and they inherited it from them, in their upper 30s, early 40s, something like that. Most property owners, if we're buying property directly from that person who owned it, they're usually over 50 years old, and a lot of times they're over 60, really. So we give you the age of the homeowner, which is just kind of it helps qualify the lead or the owner as somebody who's owned property for long enough in order for there to be enough equity and deferred maintenance to have happened in order for you to potentially buy a deal. So that's a big thing. It also tells you whether or not they're deceased. So if you pull, the records and it shows they're deceased, maybe there's a probate that's been filed at this point. Maybe there's not, right? And if it hasn't yet, then maybe you can beat your competition to the property where a probate has not been filed. Now, if the property is owned in the name of a trust, then a probate's not necessarily going to need to be filed. But if there is, if title is held in the name of an individual, that individual is deceased, and there's no probate of record on file yet, that means that they haven't started the probate process, which means you could swoop in and you could probably, if you can get in touch with the family, you could be the first one there, and that could be a big thing for you. So that's a big piece of information. And then lastly, whether or not the property owner has ever had a bankruptcy. We included that because it would show that there was some type of financial hardship in their past, which would say that, there might be some financial struggle that goes on. And it's just a good piece of supporting data to kind of show potential motivation. Not saying that they're in a bad financial spot now, but they have been in the past. And so they might need cash again. And it's just a good thing to know. So those are all the things that you're going to get from our Driving for Dollars app in this new iteration, this new build, and we're hoping to have it out this next week. This episode is going to drop Friday. We're going to be testing the build over the weekend just to make sure there's no glitches or bugs, and which inevitably there is to some extent as we continue forward and we provide this app for everybody to use. It's technology, people. I mean, things don't always work totally perfectly, but behind the scenes we work vigorously to make sure that it works as well as it can, and we fix any issues that come up. But we're basically going to be testing this thing over the weekend, and we're going to be rolling it out next week, and you're going to get all skip trace quality data. Everything is skip trace level data. You're going to get property owner information in terms of where they live. You're going to get alternative addresses in addition to the primary address so that you can track them down multiple places if they don't in fact live there. You're going to get phone numbers, landlines, and cell numbers. You're going to get multiple of each. You're going to get email address, multiple that you can market to in order in case one is no longer the one they use, or they have multiple emails that they use that maybe they've created social profiles with. You're going to get the IP address. You're going to get the owner-occupied indicator, which basically says whether it's owner-occupied or it's a rental property, which is a good thing to know. You're going to get last market sale date. You're going to get last market sale price. You're going to get the age of the homeowner. You're going to get whether or not they're deceased. And, of course, you're going to get whether or not they have ever filed a bankruptcy. So you're going to get all these things in an easy format for you to kind of export and use each contact point in order to execute marketing towards anybody that's on your list. But overall, we're super excited about this. It basically takes a ton of back-end work, and it streamlines it all, makes it real easy. And so then all you got to do is download the app, get the free course that basically reiterates a lot of stuff that I've talked about in this week's show. And then you go out and you start building lists. And then once you build the list, you run the list, you get the skip trace data, and you start marketing to the people. And guess what? Phone rings, and you start working deals. And that's how it all works. That's the magic behind this whole business, this magic pill that everybody wants to sell, right? On how to make the phone ring and how to get motivated sellers to call you. Well, I just went through it from A to Z. That's how you do it, and that's how you use our technology to make it happen. So if you have not already, make sure you go download it. It's called the Driving for Dollars app. It's a little blue logo. It's the only one that can be called the Driving for Dollars app in the App Store because it's trademarked. Go download it. It's a 5-property free trial. Currently, it's only $20 a month. We're going to have to bump prices up a little bit in order to accommodate all this new data and all these new builds that we're doing, but it's still going to be a ridiculously cheap price for what it is that you get, and we're still way, way cheaper than all of our competition and way better, in my opinion. So it's really a no-brainer. So make sure you go download it, and on top of that, you'll get a free course next week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this week's main topic. All right, hopefully you guys enjoyed this week's episode. I know it was a lot of information. It was very tactical. It was kind of in the weeds, but it was important stuff. And hopefully you took some gold nuggets from it in terms of how to execute your marketing and more importantly, how to utilize our Driving for Dollars app technology, because it's been many years in the making, and the current version of it we're just really happy about, and hopefully you guys can put it to good use. Now, this week's closing success quote that I'll leave you with is one that I read, and I thought, you know what? This is pretty good, and so I figured you guys might like it. The quote is, "Timing, perseverance, and 10 years of trying eventually will make you look like an overnight success." So timing, perseverance, and 10 years of trying will eventually make you look like an overnight success. I like that, right? Because that's really the truth, right? Most people, they don't see the all the work leading up to the success. They just see the cresting of success, right? When you're starting to come out and everybody can see the success that you're having, but they don't see all the trials and tribulations and failures and maybe campaigns, marketing campaigns to sellers that you did beforehand that didn't work out, that you lost money on or didn't get your money back on or didn't have any good leads that came through on. There's all that, right? And then there's the other side, which is when you actually make something of yourself or you gain traction or you achieve success. People see that, and then, of course, they think it's an overnight success. But the reality is, it's been a long time in the making. All right, guys, this is episode 251. I'll see you all next week.
Nigga, my motherfucking life depend on this shit. Do this shit for my son. Turn me up so I hear myself a little bit more than headphones. Came from the bottom, started this out with nothing. Turned the fam in my squad, then turn this thing into something. I grab a cone and I stuff it. Never gonna get enough, depending on how it's going. We only gonna get tougher. I done seen people suffer. Hate turned into love. Lost some people that get here, but they watching from up above. On the road, hardly ever home. And money caught one in the dome. Now it's hard to even pick up my phone. Leave me alone, I be in my zone. I'm getting grown, but not too grown to let my feelings show. Anything you want, you can get. You gotta build it though. I blew up quick and lost some shit, but now I'm dealing no. There's consequences to every decision, good or wrong. Just do the best with the time you're given and live strong. Give your all, cause a man gon' be a man and do what he gotta do. Baby, this is rolling papers too. This is rolling papers too. I'ma light it, when it's time to make a change, I ain't gon' fight it. Yeah, all of the fame fame just come with the game. It's a gift and a curse when everybody know your name. How do you make $1 million and still stay the same? How do you make 100 million and still stay sane? You got the money, the clothes, the cars, the girls, trying to do better, but all the shit's in your world. Something regular's what you prefer, but it's cool, there's too much pressure, you feel you should curve. On the verge of packing up and going back to where I came from. Tired of these rappers, I only run in the lame ones. Tired of these girls, we all fucking the same ones. I ain't giving chances no more, I already gave one. Getting money, you better save some. Don't be afraid of mistakes, cause you gotta make some. It takes time, but a man gon' be a man and do what he gotta do. Baby, this is rolling papers too. This is rolling papers too. I'ma light it, when it's time to make a change, I ain't gon' fight it. No turning back, I'm learning that. If you ever show someone love, you deserve it back. If you got an ounce and some papers, you should burn it back. And if you ever do take a loss, you can earn it back. Never slack, never overreact. Let your money stack, look at where you going and not where you at. You gon' get there if you work hard. When you make it, you'll get exactly what you work for. I want more, a couple cars in my garage, a mansion with marble floors, and a bullet to open my doors. Couple plaques on the wall, a hoop court where my friends could ball. May sound strange, but I'ma need it all. Winter, spring, summer, fall, I hit the road when I get the call. Got some family members, I don't see it all. It pays off, cause a man gon' be a man and do what he gotta do. Baby, this is rolling papers too. This is rolling papers too.